Hello everyone, hope you're all well. I'm making this video to talk about quadratics and features of quadratics. So a parabola is the graph of a quadratic equation. And this is something we've talked about in class for the last couple of units. So a parabola is a quadratic is a parabola. A parabola has to have an equation of an x squared, okay? It's very important that it has an x squared to be considered a parabola or to be considered a quadratic. You can have a positive x squared, you can have a negative x squared, but you need to have an x squared. So a parabola is a graph that looks like this, or if it's a negative x squared, it would look like this. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that divides the parabola symmetrically in half. So it's a vertical line that cuts the parabola in half. So I'll highlight this axis of symmetry for this parabola. So here it is. This line that I'm drawing cuts this parabola in half. And in this example, the equation of the axis of symmetry is x equals 1. It's always going to be an x equals line because it's always going to be a vertical line. In this case, it's x equals 1. Okay. The turning point is also called the vertex. So those words are synonyms. Turning point, I can call it, or I can call it a vertex. It is the lowest, which is the minimum, or it's the highest, which would be the maximum, point on the parabola. So in this parabola, in the picture I have as an example here, the vertex is a minimum. I'll highlight it in green. It is the lowest point on the parabola. So there's your vertex, highlighted in green. It's always an ordered pair. So in this case, it's the point 1, comma, negative 4. 1, comma, negative 4. Your x-intercepts, they're also called roots or they're called zeros. So x-intercept could also be called a root or it could be called a zero. So I could ask you, what are the x-intercepts? I could say, what are the roots? What are the zeros? It all means the same thing. It is where the graph crosses or touches the x-axis. So in this example, let's find the roots. So highlight them in blue. The roots are negative 1 and 3. So we would write that usually as x equals negative 1, x equals 3. Okay, we typically have two x-intercepts, two roots for a parabola, for a quadratic. Okay, your y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. We only have one y-intercept. So in this, let's highlight the y-axis, a little refresher for us. So here's the y-axis. So where does this parabola cross through the y-axis? Well, right here. I'm making that pinky purple color at 0, comma, negative 3. So usually we write it as a y equals. So usually we say the y-intercept is y equals negative 3. You can write it as an ordered pair. That would be 0, comma, negative 3. Okay. I just have 3 questions I'd like to do with you. So this question, first one says, which equation represents the axis of symmetry of the graph of the parabola below? So let's highlight the axis of symmetry. So here we go. I'll highlight it in green here. So here is the axis of symmetry, that line that cuts the parabola right in half. So -1, -2, -3. So x equals -3. That's the equation of this axis of symmetry for this specific parabola. Okay, let's look at the next one. The graph below represents the parabolic path. See that word parabola in there? So it's like a parabola. It's making the shape of a parabola of a ball kicked by a young child. What are the vertex and the axis of symmetry? Well, let's find the vertex. That's right here. So the point of that vertex is 3, and then it looks like we're going up 8. So that vertex is 3, 8. So right away I can cancel out choice 3 and choice 4. And then the axis of symmetry, I'll highlight that in blue. Let's cut that parabola in half. So that line is x equals 3. So choice 1 is the correct choice. Okay, and then let's do one more. Unfortunately, a limitation of this video is that I can't show you my calculator, but this is a calculator question. It says which point is not on the graph of y equals x squared plus 3x minus 6. I think the easiest thing to do is just to plug it into your calculator and we'll look at the table. So why don't you take your calculator out? Let's go to y equals, and let's type in x squared plus 3x minus 6. So let's do that. And now let's go to the table. That second graph brings you to the table, and that table tells you all these points that are on this parabola, on this graph of x squared plus 3x minus 6. So all we have to do is check the 4 choices and see which one is not on there. So the first choice is -6, 12. So I'm going to scroll using my up and down arrows until I get to -6, and I see that -6, 12 is a point on the graph. So I'm not going to pick that because they said which is not. So now let's go to -4. -4, -2 is a point on the graph, so I'm not going to pick that one. Let's go to 2. Scroll down to 2. 2, 4 is another point on the graph, so we're not going to pick that. Hopefully it's this last one, and it is. 3, -6 is not on the graph. The point that's on the graph is 3, 12. So 3, 12 is on the graph, 3, -6 is not. Okay, I'll have a few questions for you to complete on your own, and I hope you have a good day.